You're live.
Hello and welcome to my show. My name is MadisonStar Moon. Joining me for what promises to be an amazing show are Garry Rhodes, Terry Lawton, and Gary Lowney. What an honor it is to have such amazing guests tonight. It was such a pleasure to meet all of you at the Global Chemtrails Summit in Vancouver, Canada this year. Tonight, we will be blowing the lid off chemtrails and geoengineering. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show.
Hello.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Amanda.
Hello. Hi. Okay, I'm going to start off with Harry Rhodes. Harry, how are you doing? And if basically I want to do the least amount of talking, having, the powerhouse activists and researchers that you guys are. Harry, you can just start from the top, whatever you want to start with, and we'll go from there.
Wow, where do we start? We had a fantastic experience in the Vancouver Summit. That was great, some great information, but wow, how things have moved on since then. We've seen some massive changes. We can talk amongst fellow activists now, so without going into all the generalization, we've seen both massive changes in government, the way that they are editing the internet. Everything that's been said has been blocked if it's of any importance to them, to stop them. But we've seen the chemtrails actually come on with great intensity. What's been happening in one place and moving around, we now see happening all over the planet, even across the seas and the oceans, especially since CERN's come on the scene. We can talk about that later as well. Some amazing technology that they're using as weaponry against us. Incredible.
Right. And now you have many different ways of combating these chemtrails. Would you like to start discussing some of those techniques?
Well, it started years ago with people like Tesla and Wilhelm Reich. Wilhelm Reich was a great character. He experimented in things like ether. Ether, for people who don't know about it, is similar to Qi, Reiki, Orgone. It's, in a nutshell, ether is one of those energies that it's very difficult to understand because it's difficult to prove its existence apart from what you see as of its effects. But explaining it simply, it fills all space that we think has nothing inside. So, for example, for light to pass through space, it must be in the presence of ether. If there's no ether, it can't travel. For example, at the end of the universe, they assume that light won't pass through there because the universe has no ether at that point, and so the universe can't expand. But ether, for example, if you were to use some of the instruments that we are using, we can affect the weather. Ether controls all energy, it controls electricity. None of these things can exist unless it's in the presence of ether. So ether is everywhere. But we've had some spectacular experiences, which we'll go into later. Thunderstorms created, wind, rain, and even clouds dissipated to bring in clear blue skies. Wow, what a great honor to see a blue sky that's been chemtrailed previously, and
Absolutely.
You created it.
That's beautiful. Now, is this with the chembusters?
There's two types now. Wilhelm Reich, who was arrested and put in prison under false pretenses, he actually created rain through the period of the Dust Bowl back in the 50s and 60s. And then the person that took over from Wilhelm Reich was actually Trevor James Constable, who was an ex-naval employee. And he did thousands of experiments on ships, on aircraft, and ground-based on how to control the weather, to dissipate cloud formations, to make it rain. So he developed techniques that Wilhelm Reich didn't use, with the use of mirrors and tubes and organic material.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. So have you created some of these yourself?
Oh, yes. We built one in Vancouver, Mount Shasta. We've built them in Ireland.
You built one in Vancouver over at Gary's house?
Yes.
Okay, let's bring Garry in for a minute. And Terry, is Terry still on the line? It seems like he might have dropped off.
Hi, Amanda. It's Garry here.
Hi, Garry. Okay, so, and it looks like Terry dropped off. Am I wrong about that? I don't know. I don't see him on the thing.
No, can't see him.
Yeah,
Okay.
I see him there.
Okay. Well, anyways, I want to welcome you all into this conversation. So you built a chembuster at your house. Can you tell everybody what that entails?
Are you going to tell him, Harry?
Oh, well, go on. You can start, mate. You were there.
Well, my experience, I'm going to back up a little bit before we tell you how this thing was built and kind of how I got into this. My experience was kind of waking up a couple of years ago to all the various things that you've discussed on your programs. And I had an opportunity to basically bill it, to have Harry and Terry stay at my home during the Vancouver Chemtrail Conference. And what an awesome experience that was. If you've ever, you're a musician, Amanda, you know what it would be like to go to rock and roll fantasy camp, for example,
Right.
with your favorite musicians. So
Yeah.
about, maybe 3 or 4 hours before they arrived at my house, I received a phone call from Matt Landman, who was dropping them off. I was just expecting Terry initially, and Matt said, "Hey, can you house Harry Rhodes as well?" And to me, that was like to a scientist saying, "Oh, can Tesla come stay at your house? Can Einstein come stay at your house?" Or if you're thinking rock and roll fantasy camp, can Eric Clapton or Eddie Van Halen come stay at your house? So
Right.
I was, oh my God, yes, of course. So those guys came to the home, and of course, you might know they're also fantastic musicians. Both
Right.
Terry
I do.
play guitar brilliantly and they sing awesomely. So there was like 3 or 4 days of all kinds of great musical interaction going on here as well. In addition, so it was just a fantastic weekend. But Harry was really keen on building a cloudbuster, and I was in the back of my mind before they got here, I was just like hoping maybe he would share a secret with me and give me some hints on how to put one together. But he decided he was going to go full blown and put one of these things together, and so he did. And what an amazing experience we had the first night he was assembling it. Did you want to elaborate on that, Harry, or should I continue?
Whoa, now we've lost Terry. Okay, I do see
No,
that.
no, sorry. I was on mute.
Okay, and Terry, hold on one second. Terry Lawton. Yeah, hold on a second, guys. Terry Lawton is actually back. I want to unmute him so he can be part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Terry.
You're back?
Yeah, I'm here again. Okay. Yeah, so I had never actually been a part of a cloud busting deployment before Vancouver. I built a chembuster here back in Wexford about a year ago. That's the copper pipe chembuster in the resin matrix, and I didn't have any results with that. I was pretty disappointed actually. So when we got to Vancouver, Harry had the plans to build a cloudbuster because he had already built his own one back in England and he had already had lots of success with it in terms of changing weather forecasts and whatnot. So yeah, we went down to the hardware store, myself, Garry, and Harry, and we were a few hours shopping. Garry was running around with the trolley going up and down aisles like a blue ass fly. But after about 3 or 4 hours of running around the place for various equipment, we eventually got all the necessary equipment. We got back.
Now, what are the necessary equipment for making a chembuster?
Well, just lots of steel piping, like a 2-inch steel piping, but like 2 meter lengths. Seven pipes we used, or five pipes actually, and lots of timber to build a frame. You need 5 or 7, an odd number of pipes built into a pivot, and the pivot needs to be on a frame. So it's lots of timber and hinges and different things like that, and piping and flexible hose. Harry will go into the details of the list of the components we need. But so we got back to Garry's. Myself and Garry were pretty worn out from the shopping, so we were there having a beer. About an hour later, Harry gives us a call. We go out to him, and he's got this thing pretty much built. He had done this on his own. He asked us to erect the pivot with him, so we mounted it up on top of the frame. And this is about 10 o'clock at night. It was dark. It was completely dark. There was no rain forecasted for that night, and it was cloudy up above. So Harry said, okay, we're going to sprinkle a little bit of water in here now. And he sprinkled water into the end of the pipes. And he said we should see a little bit of rain now any minute. And we should feel some wind, followed by some wind. And lo and behold, sprinkled water down the pipes. And about literally 5-10 seconds later, a gust of wind came. There was no wind whatsoever prior to this. And a big gust of wind came. And there was like 100-foot trees at the back of Garry's house, and they were swaying like crazy within about a minute. And it started to rain about 2 minutes later, and me and Garry were just mystified. We were just totally blown away. It was like a paranormal experience, man. We just had shivers running through us, couldn't believe what was happening. And Harry was just there, kind of as calm as you like. It was like a second nature to him. He's been there before. He had conducted many successful deployments, so we were just blown away. We were looking at each other going, holy shit, man. We were just pinching ourselves. And then we had a flash of sheet lightning exactly in the direction where the cloudbuster was pointed up in the sky. Sheet lightning, orange lightning all over the place, spectacular sheet lightning. This was followed then about 5 minutes later by a power outage in the neighborhood. Not only in the but in the whole area of Mission in Vancouver, the whole like 100,000 houses went dead. It wasn't actually a power outage; it was a power brownout. And a power brownout is when the energy is sucked from the system. Usually, this is caused by an overload, whether it be a big power station might turn on, or a big factory might turn on without notifying the local power station. But in this case, we asked Harry, like, what's going on here, man? Why is the electricity gone out in the neighborhood? So what happens is when the ether gets to work, ether controls electricity, magnetism, and energy. So when it gets to work, it looks for all the available resources in the area, like all of those energy, magnetism, and electricity. So it sucks all the electricity. It sucked all the electricity from the grid to clear the atmosphere, and that's what we saw. We saw the sheet lightning. The clouds cleared. It poured rain. The clouds cleared, and the next day we had lovely blue skies, and the blue skies were there for like days afterwards. And it wasn't even forecast sun for the next day. So it was pretty amazing. Now I have to tell you, it was out of this world.
Now this is just from creating one chembuster, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So the power of one chembuster can make that much of an effect on the environment. That's amazing. Harry, would you like to add to this?
Well, this is where the mind starts being boggled, because when someone says, listen, if you fire that up and point it below the horizon, that can stop hurricanes and typhoons. And this is where people look at you and go, you're mad. This is where I leave this conversation. And I assure you, not only has Garry done this, people have done it for years before. We've got the evidence, and I will send you the links to this, where people have stopped typhoons and hurricanes. For example, one was stopped a few years ago under Trevor James Constable's instructions. Even, can you remember when they said we're going to have massive snowstorms in the USA? And then all of the authorities apologised because it never came. And that was Trevor James Constable. I can also send evidence that California had its reservoirs filled right to the top from 2014 to 2015. The news media will not report on it. And I've got satellite pictures that show through 2014 to 2015, California went green. And that's on official NASA photos. And then they deliberately emptied the reservoirs because they didn't want full reservoirs in California. That is absolutely true. They call it the new blue money, which is water. So you can have fantastic effects with the ether. This is what it's all about, the control of the ether. I'll explain how that works later. But can you imagine when you've got a piece of equipment in your back garden and you can change the weather for 5,000 miles away? And this is the equipment, I assure you, this is the equipment we've got. I personally have brought down as much as 5,000 square miles of chemtrails.
Oh my gosh.
And if you look, I've got some deployments that I've shown where rain's been created, where chemtrails were. It's almost like glue in the atmosphere, chemtrails are, because if there's no moisture there, it's like fine dust floating around in a hot, dry, arid atmosphere. Then it's difficult to remove. You've got to work really hard to bring the moisture to create the cloud formations, which then drops it. But yes, it's possible. And it's all to do with a reaction between the potential of ether. If you can imagine two tanks of water which are linked by a hose pipe, if you drop one, the water will then siphon from the top tank to the lower tank. Or if you raise it higher than the other tank, it'll reverse and go from what was before the lower tank, now is the higher tank. So that's how ether works. It runs to a lower potential. Now, you can't create energy. Tesla said you cannot create energy. You can only tap in to the movement as it goes past you. And that's exactly how ether works. So you create a low potential of ether in the machine, and that will create a difference in the potential of the ether in the atmosphere, and vice versa. Create a high potential, it reacts with a low potential in the atmosphere. And the rule is this: high potential of ether is actually things like thunderstorms and thick cloud mass and potential rain. There's an active high ether content in the atmosphere. A low content of ether is when you've got clear blue skies, hardly any clouds. So that's how Wilhelm Reich could do it. So on a sunny day, if you wanted rain, you keep a high potential of ether going and going and going and moving around. Eventually, clouds will form.
In 1961, there was some reporter or someone who published something, but other than that, there was really no interest that he ever got from anyone, and certainly not the authorities, for them to try to secure the place. Is that correct?
That is correct. And he had lost all hope. And then in 1961, when Michael Paul Henson looked him up, that's what, that's 36 years down the road. He was quite happy that somebody had looked at what he had reported and actually took an interest in it. And it didn't actually make print in the books, I believe, until like 1964, 65, I think was the first entry concerning the location here in Southeast Marion County.
Mm-hmm. And then the period between approximately 1982 to 1990, there were lootings of it, and then there were also some rather recent corpses that were stuffed in it during the 80s as well. Is that correct?
We don't know for sure, but it's what Burroughs, the guy that rediscovered it and got in it, that's what he claimed. He claimed that he had shot or killed a couple of people, and we just assumed that perhaps he stuffed one of them down in that tomb, which might indicate one of the reasons why he quit going in. It could have collapsed, but knowing him and knowing the things that he could have done, something could have gotten in there. He could have had human excrement could have been in there and turned septic and fouled up the air, or an animal could have gotten in there and died, or, you know, we don't know. We don't know for sure. That's just what his claim was.
Okay. And then, but you did in the mid 90s, you and Paul Strafke did get into these caves firsthand, though. That's correct?
No, No,
Okay.
I came up here looking for a needle in a haystack, and Burroughs wasn't giving us any more information to go on. And so we had this entire look. I had several sheets of logistics. We were going to go and paddle up the Skillet Fort River, check every tributary to its end. We were going to check every ravine, every canyon, because in the book, Mystery Cave of Many Faces, there's a couple of pictures that Burroughs took of the actual ravine. So I figured, well, you know, if we go there and we have the book and we have these pictures,
and then after deployment, if you get the potential correct, you can change that weather. In fact, a classic case was I recorded the weather before I went to Terry's house in Ireland to build one. And they forecast there'd be cold winds coming from the north, there would be rain and cloud. I've got that, it's a fact. We've got it. And we had not just the opposite, it was absolutely, totally the opposite. We had a heat wave, we had no torrential rain, we had beautiful clean blue skies, and that spread on the satellite from Ireland right across Europe. And we had that for about a week and a half when they said we'd have cold temperatures and rain and cloud for a week and a half. That's the potential of cloudbusters. Now, sometimes it doesn't always work for a number of reasons. One is if you've deployed and the potential of the cloudbuster is the same as in the atmosphere, nothing will happen. It's like putting two earth wires together or two negative wires. But when you've got a positive and a negative and you've created that field of potential, boy, you get wild reactions. And there's some people out there thinking, well, hang on, aren't they geoengineering the weather? Isn't that the same that you're doing? Well, technically, yes, but 100% no, because ether is a natural phenomenon. And when you deploy ether, it resets the atmosphere to a natural state. That's very important. That's why you get these beautiful turquoise blue colours in the sky. Them are the skies I remember when I was young, not these white, silver, hazy days where the chemtrails spread out into this horrible looking straw-like blue. And we see that more and more and more. And I would say this technology is mind-blowing. Even amongst people who've known about chemtrails and activists, it's almost a second awakening, because this is a technology the likes they have never even conceived and never thought possible. And yet here we are. We've got it. Wilhelm Reich was killed in prison, not just for the way he altered the weather, but because, for example, here's another mind-blowing fact. If you have ether concentrated in the presence of genetically modified seeds and food, well, not food, but plants and vegetation, by at least the third generation from seed to plant to seed, it has returned to organic. Now, that is amazing. It's a fact. It's absolutely true. It would be interesting to see if you, for example, focused these equipment on a organically, genetically modified plant system, and then on the second and third generation to see what's happened. I'm pretty sure it would do it to that as well.
Okay, now we all know that the government covered up Tesla's technology. They didn't want us to know about it. Does the government try to cover up this technology? And also, is it illegal to create and install these chembusters or cloudbusters?
Well, officially to the government, they don't work.
So
Okay.
yes, it's covered up. It's covered
Right.
up.
So like if a jet, or if they had a helicopter flying over your house and they saw many of these, would it be grounds for them to investigate your home or something like that?
Well, it's funny, after my first deployment here in Wexford, this is before Harry came, about a month before Harry came over, that weekend, it was a couple of days after I deployed, I had a British Airways cargo 747 circling above my house. It flew out from London and it was en route to Chicago, and it done a U-turn about 5 miles west of my house, and it came back and it went back over my house again, and then it went over towards Wales, and I was pointed over towards Wales. The cloudbuster was pointed towards Wales, so it kept circling around Wales. This plane did for about 3 hours, and it ended up going back to London. That was very, very suspicious. This was a cargo plane en route to Chicago. I don't know. My guess is, I don't know, it was a surveillance plane kitted out with a lot of sophisticated equipment, possibly monitoring the effects that my cloudbuster was having in the atmosphere. I don't know. Could be just paranoia. Very doubtful though. This plane was only flying at 15,000 feet, which is very, very unusual. I was lying off in my garden and I seen it flying by. It was like it was going to land in an airport. It was so low. So very unusual. And I've also had a couple of helicopters flying around here as well, over the house. Harry had one over his house last week. I saw
two actually,
hovering over his house for like how long was it, Harry?
About 20 minutes, and it wasn't going anywhere else. It was hovering stationary, one for 20 minutes, one for 15 minutes, side by side.
I can concur that here near Vancouver, I get the same thing daily, multiple times daily. I get planes that will circle my property, just doing constant loops. Some of them might just be a local cat out in his Cessna or his Cherokee for a ride, and he looks down in my yard and he sees what looks to be like a 5-barrel Gatling gun pointed up at his plane, and might get him a little bit curious. But I get helicopters and planes over my place all the time.
Yeah. Harry, how many chembusters do you have?
Let me go count them. I've got two main chembusters. Well, I've got three. I've got a small tube translator, which I did a video on when I was on holiday. I've got a larger stainless steel one, which is about 10 foot long, single pipe, with jet sprays in. And then I've got a 7-tube 10-foot by 10-foot tubes, 7 of them, and to a etheric capacitor, which is about 3'6" by about 2 foot.
Right. And how often do you use them?
I shut them down for a few days at a time, but quite often I will use them once, maybe twice a week.
That's awesome. Yep. Now, is this something that anyone can make? I mean, is this something really expensive, or how do we learn how to make these?
Well, it's something that you don't put into the general public's hands because it potentially could be abused. In fact, here's a secret for you. Absolutely 1000% true. Trevor James Constable was contacted by a particular gentleman in Australia who convinced Trevor that he could use the technology responsibly, and Trevor gave him all the blueprints, how to build them, and explained and helped him. In fact, they didn't build one, they built 3. And they thought they'd have some fun with them, so they deployed them for 2 weeks solid in many directions. And the result was catastrophic. I promise you this is absolutely true. It created the worst floods in Australia's history, and they declared a state of emergency. So, yes, in the wrong hands, this equipment is not good when people use it irresponsibly. And that's why...
Yeah. I'm sorry, Harry. How does one know how to use it responsibly?
You ask Harry.
Being given.
You run any assignments past him.
In fact, if somebody abuses it, and I've looked at the weather, potentially I could tell that it's been deployed. And if it's been deployed irresponsibly, you can also see as well.
I can confirm that on almost every time I've deployed my Cloudbuster without exception, almost every time without exception, I've gotten a call or a message from Harry saying, "Hey mate, are you pointed in this direction? I see your signature in the atmosphere." And by looking at all the satellites, Harry looks at probably almost every satellite that's available, And if you're up to something, he'll know. Pretty
Wow.
amazing, actually.
That is so impressive.
Yeah, you
Yes.
get a call from him and say, Harry, you pointed over the Pacific, mate. Well, yeah, I am, Harry. I see your signature there.
It's unusual because as the ether travels and cuts up through the atmosphere, and the cloudbuster, it's like a flat plane. And where it passes through the cloud formations, you will see a straight line blocking the clouds. And I can only explain this like, when you've got a bath full of water and you push your hand through it, as your hand pushes the water forward, you get two vortexes, one left rotating and one right rotating either side of your hand. And that's the signature you look for, because ether blocks that movement of cloud. It cannot pass by the area of where the ether is.
Yeah,
So in order to rush around it, it causes a vortex.
Think of it like a boat wake. And once the boat wake is in place, nothing can penetrate the boat wake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, sorry, Terry, go on, mate.
When myself and Harry deployed from my house here in Wexford, before the heat wave, we created a block of Spain. We pointed south, and we had it on a low angle, so we were hitting like about 20,000 feet in the atmosphere at about 5,000 miles or 3,000 miles south. So where we were pointing, you could see it was like a wall of cloud, a cloud system moving up from the south, but it was completely blocked where we were pointing. You could see just like a straight line for thousands of miles, and we held it there, stayed there for about 2 days, and then it just eventually passed. But it created amazing weather, and it was something like I'd never seen before. Clouds just stopping, coming to a stop. There was something blocking them and wouldn't allow it to go any further, and it was absolutely amazing to see. The weather was just fantastic, and just like in Garry's house, the experience in Vancouver, we also had lightning the next night. In Garry's, we had lightning immediately. After the deployment at my house, we had lightning that night, and it was an amazing spectacle of lightning. I never seen the atmosphere alive like I saw it that night. It was just orange flashes just every couple of seconds. Just the whole atmosphere was just alive for the whole night. Just this weird, like a light bulb flickering, just flickering all night. I'd never seen lightning like it before, and yeah, it's one of the hallmarks of a successful deployment. Is when you see the lightning. Harry, we take down the negative or the positive ions from the atmosphere. Isn't that right? With the negative ionic charge.
Yeah, what a deployment is. If you've got a bolt of lightning, that's instant within seconds, and that's under the control of the ether. So you've got your positive ions reacting with negative ions on the Earth's surface, and there's an instant build-up of energy of two potentials, positive to negative, and that energy has to be released. So you get the instant transfer from the upper atmosphere straight through bolt of lightning down to the surface of the Earth. Now, when you deploy a cloudbuster, exactly that happens, but in slow motion. So you're stripping the positive ions and pulling them to the Earth to negative ions. So instead of a bolt of lightning happening, it happens gently over a period of time. It's not just about that. It's also, there's a thing called DOR. Now, Amanda, you may have spotted this. DOR is a negative, it's deadly orgone. It's a negative energy, and it's present in very low dark clouds. For example, when we see these massive weather occasions that appear, when they've charged the atmosphere with positive ions and there's an overload. We've recently had a storm with 17,000 bolts of lightning in 2 hours.
Wow.
Up the UK, and in Norway, 300 deer were killed within seconds. Now, that's not normal. One bolt, you can be standing 3 feet from somebody that's been hit with a bolt of lightning, and they can be completely burnt and you can be okay. So if you've got over 2 or 3 acres deer and every one of them was killed, there is something weird going on there. And this is when you get a positive charge of ionization with things from NEXRADS, atmospheric heaters like HARP. That's a signature that they've been up to no good. But, you know, I had and interviewed Billy Hayes, who's built 6 HARP stations, including the one in Alaska. And I interviewed Billy, and recorded it. I've got it on a conversation. And first of all, he said, you haven't an idea of the power of ether. He understands it. He says, do you realize you can stop HARP with that? And you know what, Amanda? We have. They were heating the atmosphere in the Caribbean. And with 2 other gentlemen who've done this for years, under instructions, this was in my early days, he told me where to point, and I could immediately see a massive effect on the jet stream and some of the winds on Africa. And what it does, ether cools the atmosphere. And due to them heating the atmosphere, what it's done, because that's how they control the weather. They heat up and boil up the atmosphere by hundreds of degrees, thousands of degrees when you get plasma. And then that air rises, which sucks in the air underneath. So they keep moving forward in position, which drags all the clouds in the atmosphere down bank with them. So we deployed for 40 hours, and I got an urgent message saying, whoa, 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 you've got to cap off, cap off. So I capped off, and I asked why. And I got a link sent to me. There was snow in Guadeloupe. Never in the history of Guadeloupe has there been snow. I assure you, the local residents were filming it. And that's the power of ether.
Wow. This is just mind-boggling. I mean, would you guys like to add anything else to this? Because I'm really at a loss for words right now. I'm just kind of trying to soak it all in.
Well, without adding too much, I'll just say that Vancouver Island got snow twice in the summer of 2016.
Hey, Garry,
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Somebody was experimenting.
Wow. Yeah.
This
This is really amazing.
Garry, have you ever had snow in Vancouver in July or in summer, August?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Okay, let me ask you guys this. I don't know if you've ever spoken to David Keith or Ken Caldera or any of the other geoengineers, but have they ever addressed this technology?
No, those guys work with poison and heat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me and Terry have had personal conversations with these guys, haven't we, Terry?
Mm-hmm.
And Terry's friend, what's his name again, who walked off from us? Alan Robock.
Mm-hmm.
But they would not accept this technology. Amanda, you know, these people are top eminent scientists. And you know, in some ways they are absolutely thick. And we've seen that. Some of them are totally oblivious to other technologies and other information, the likes that we know. And they haven't a clue. They're all pigeonholed.
You know, we should probably preface this by just saying that you know, the whole process of patents in science as we know it is really the patent process is just to control the information. You know, so that there's plenty of people out there that know of technology that's not released to the general public. For example, we all know the military has access to technology probably 50 years or more in advance to the general public. So this information's out there. It's just suppressed, and through the process of, you know, scientific peer review, you know, just repeat and regurgitate. If something comes in that's different, that doesn't fit into the repeat regurgitate process, you know, an academic science that isn't aware of alternative science would not validate it, and any scientist that's that's paid wouldn't validate it. So it's suppressed. It's the key to free energy, for example. That's why it's not talked about. That's how Tesla's free energy loops worked. It was through ether. It's Einstein changed the name to space, and then now we think of space as nothing, but it isn't. But I digress.
All part of the dumbing down. It's interesting you mentioned Tesla, because Tesla admitted he discovered everything he ever discovered, and boy did he discover some things. But his secret to every one of his discoveries, every single one of them, was down to his understanding of ether. How about that?
If you guys don't mind, I would like to touch on David Keith for a moment, because David Keith, along with many other lying scientists, wrote an article. It was in the New York Times, along with many other magazines, stating that there is no scientific evidence of chemtrails. And then David Keith, while he was on this role, came out with a video stating that if there was, in fact, a secret government operation, it would have been leaked by now by someone, because it's impossible to keep a secret of that magnitude.
That's
Would you guys like
hilarious.
to comment? I know it's disgusting. Go ahead and comment on it, please.
To me, that's like Martha Ray saying that there is, there's no recipe for baking. It's insanity. The guy knows so much about geoengineering. He's developed patents and studied the technology. It's literally like, Martha Ray saying that she doesn't know how to bake a cake, or we tried. They were going to make a cupcake once. They did a little experiment in China. The icing went all over the place. We can't do it. We can't do it. It's insanity.
When myself and Max Bliss and Harry were at the Climate Engineering Conference in Berlin in 2014, we confronted Alan Robock. Myself and Max Bliss were up on stage, and Mr. Alan Robock denied basically that weather modification worked. He said it has never been proven that conventional or commercial weather modification works. It's not possible to make it rain by seeding clouds, and it's all haphazard. To say something like that is a complete delusion of history, because it's been possible to make it rain, for mankind to make it rain for at least 100, 150 years. It's been known, since it's been conducted since early last century. Like in 1916 in Chicago, there was a guy called Charles Hatfield. He was known as the moisture accelerator, and this guy used to mix a concoction of chemicals in an evaporation tank, and he could successfully make it rain within a couple of hours. So the city of Chicago hired his services to bring rain to the Marina Dam, because it had dried out, and Chicago was experienced a severe drought. So they hired his services. He got to work. The next day, it poured rain. It rained for 3-4 days. The dam overflowed. It burst its banks. There was millions of dollars worth of damage done around the Chicago area, and this was a local disaster, basically. And it was such a disaster that when it came to him getting paid, they refused to pay him because he had caused so much damage. So this was an acknowledgement, basically, that his experiment had worked, and indeed it was very successful. So to say that weather modification or cloud seeding doesn't work is an absolute gross negligence of the fact.
It's insanity, isn't it, Terry? I just before this call, I was just on our federal government of Canada website. I live in Canada, and we have a Weather Modification Act. You can download it and you can apply to change weather. You can submit your plans. They have all the criteria that's required there, and it's listed right on the federal government website if you look for it. Yet if you were to talk to a local politician about the possibility of weather control, or a community official, they would look at you like you're freaking crazy.
Exactly.
I mean, this information is right there in your face, and an academic like David Keith has the audacity to to laugh and pretend he's like a schoolyard bully laughing at the stupid kid in the sandbox when he knows the truth. It's craziness.
They know best. They know it all. We're just stupid little people coming along, and we have no idea what we're talking about. We show them all of these facts. We show them. Say, I show David Keith the homepage of Oliver's Travels. They're a weather modification company that can guarantee you good weather. They can guarantee you sunshine on your wedding day. 100% guarantee you 100% sunshine on your wedding day. And this guy, he says, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And this company is thriving. They're operating in France. They're expanding to the UK. And there's hundreds of companies like that. You can go onto the internet, Google weather modification. You can buy rain in the morning. You can buy sunshine. These services have been around for decades. And
even mainstream media here in Canada, in Alberta, Calgary, Alberta, where David Keith is from. He works out of the University of Calgary. Anyways, Global News out of Calgary, Alberta, just this past week ran a story about how busy weather modification companies were cloud seeding with silver iodide in Alberta to make it rain. That was like just right on mainstream television, and yet people can't connect the dots. It's just,
right. And then he would go on national television on Stephen Colbert's show and suggest that it would be an idea to spray tons of sulfuric acid and shroud the atmosphere in sulfuric acid. Yeah. But then he would say, and then Stephen Colbert asked him, could this be done, with whatever? And he's like, yeah, a few private planes could be doing it in some areas. He's basically telling us what's going on, but really it's massive fleets and it's been going on for decades. But then he has the nerve to come on and say, there's absolutely no evidence of chemtrails, and if there was, somebody would have already come forward. You mean like he did on national television?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to just mention, thank goodness for Terry, who was there with his camera at Cambridge University. This was a wow moment. They know, coming to the poison side of it, they know the consequences of this being sprayed. Now, they are talking about spraying aluminium nanoparticulates and aluminium sulfate. And I said to David Keith, in front of his fellow scientists in Cambridge University at the Solar Radiation Management Conference, and I pointed out, and this is a scientific fact, that aluminium reacts with mercury catastrophically. It makes mercury 100 times more neurotoxic. Fact. Now, think about this. They spray nanoparticulates of aluminium. It goes in the water system. The water authorities do not have the technology to remove particulates that small. It then mixes with the fluoride in the water, which becomes aluminium fluoride, and we drink it, and it mixes with mercury that we have in our bodies from amalgam fillings, and we've got a catastrophic reaction from neurotoxins. At which point, by the way, Alzheimer's disease is now the #1 killer in the UK, which is amazing, isn't it? That's a neurotoxin, and it's now the #1 killer. But Terry explained what happened to David Keith at Cambridge University. It was dead funny.
Yeah, Harry pointed out the connection between mercury and aluminium when they mix, and he basically David Keith got very quiet. He went off stage. He came back and he changed the subject. I was filming it. Harry, what else happened? Your memory's a bit better than mine. There was something else happened there.
I watched the video, and Harry pointedly asked him. Harry spelled out, laid out the science that if you mix mercury with aluminum, there's a catastrophic reaction, and basically said have you folks studied and thought about the effects of all this aluminum that's coming down in the sky? And it gets into our systems in various ways, right? You breathe it, you drink it, you eat it. And that mixes with, the mercury that's in your fillings and in the vaccines. And have you thought about the effect? And David Keith walked off the stage.
He didn't respond in any way?
Walked off the stage.
That's amazing. What a fool. Yeah, very telling. I mean, what do you expect from a puppet? This man is really dangerous. I mean, every time I see him, I want to cringe. He's a liar and a sociopath. A psychopath. He's not even a sociopath. For someone to perpetrate geoengineering as a viable option and mitigate global warming, what do you guys think about global warming?
Amanda, your microphone's playing up again.
Oh, no. Give me a second, guys.
It's very bad reception here now. I can't hear you, Amanda.
But just like
Is
what
it okay now?
No.
Okay, relax, man. Just go ahead and talk. I think you might be okay now. Go ahead.
All right, what about now?
Yeah, it's still doing it.
I'll just let you have a look at that. I'll just mention about mercury. 50% of the weight of your amalgam fillings is mercury. 50%. Within 5 years, 30 to 40% of that mercury has leached out into your body. They won't tell you that. It's a fact. There's a video on YouTube of a scientist talking about it. So you can imagine, we all have, if you've got amalgam fillings in you, you've got mercury toxins inside your body.
This stuff never stops leaking out. I recently went to a holistic dentistry here in Ireland to get my mercury fillings removed. I had 6 of them I had 3 on either side of my teeth. I've had them all removed. Before I got them taken out, I had a mercury emissions test conducted, and I was emitting 170 parts per million of mercury, and I have recently had another emissions test. It's now down to 20. But the dentist is saying that it'll go down to 0 over time. There's still a little bit of it in my system. It takes that long to detoxify, but it's constantly leaching out. Once those mercury fillings are in your head, they just leach. It never stops. It's an ongoing, continuous process of neurological assault, and it's absolutely lethal. As Harry was saying, when it mixes, and Garry, when it mixes with aluminium, like what they're spraying in the atmosphere, what David Keith is proposing, spraying 200 million tons of aluminium oxide. When it mixes with mercury, mercury comes in 100 times more toxic. And as Harry said, Alzheimer's the #1 killer in the UK now. Any coincidence with all this spraying going on and all of these? Then you got all of these neurological disorders off the charts. There's a definite connection there.
Right. I'd like to comment about Alzheimer's. Can you guys hear me?
It's very distorted.
I can hear you.
You're still a little distorted, Amanda, but
Okay, what about now?
perfect.
Oh, that's better.
Perfect.
Okay, good. Okay, my grandmother died of Alzheimer's, and my grandmother never drank, never smoked, ate right, took very great care of herself, and she was out in the yard all the time. She was using a chainsaw in her 80s to cut down trees in her backyard. Just an amazing woman, but she died of Alzheimer's. And you know, you have to think about these things. What would cause that? It's from her being outside, breathing in all these toxins. And you know, now they have children's Alzheimer's. Come on, guys. I mean, if we're going to allow this to continue, we are fools. There have to be people that stand up. And I'm just very grateful to have research, intelligent, wonderful activists like yourselves to bring forth this important information. Because you know, there needs somebody that just complains about the sky or whatever. You guys are bringing scientific data and going up against the establishment. And I just want to thank you guys so much for putting yourself out there like that.
Okay, Amanda, do me a favor. Replug your USB, your card, please, again, real quick for us while these guys are responding. Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to change the subject slightly. They say that CO2 is the killer, and they've demonized CO2 to the point that they say we want to rid it from the planet virtually, and yet it's the food for all vegetation and life. However, I looked at the emissions, for example, a 747 jet. Now, they produce copious amounts of CO2. Now, the weird thing with CO2, and this is from specifications which have now been confirmed, the higher you spray or emit CO2 in the atmosphere, the longer it lasts. So, because cars that emit CO2 don't particularly cause a problem. Now, I'm not saying CO2 is a problem. We're playing devil's advocate on their behalf. Now, CO2 in the upper atmosphere above 30,000 feet can stay there for over 1,000 years. Now, think about this. They do a sortie for a chemtrail flight for 10 hours in a 747, okay, which cools the planet for maybe 1 or 2 days where it's flown. It emits over 66,000 kilos of CO2, which according to them will warm the planet for as much as 1,000 years. Who the hell in the right mind can recommend a jet to spray chemtrails to cool the planet when the CO2 will warm it up for 1,000 years on a 10-hour flight? And I mentioned this to Alan Robock, didn't I, Terry?
Mm-hmm.
And he had to admit, that's true. And yet, in his thesis, he recommends to use 737 jets to spray chemtrails.
It's craziness. You know, I think like you know, a lot of people that have actually put some thought into this would agree. And I'll take, you know, I'll admit it took me a long time. I actually I taught, you know, the sort of the fake CO2 science for about 20 years in my work here in Canada, kind of delivering Agenda 21 in various ways with the energy efficiency programs I've worked with. And you know, it's just been the last couple of years of really consciously looking at stuff that I've realized that the whole CO2 global warming, in my view, is maybe the biggest fraud in humanity. You know, it's the biggest fraud ever pulled. CO2 is plant food, right? That's what trees and plants breathe. They breathe CO2, and the beautiful thing is they release oxygen as a result of that, which we breathe, and it's this great cycle. And we exhale CO2. It's our life breath, you know. And they're using the CO2 and their technology as a way to entrap humanity. So they're using technology like NexRad and HARP and all the various atmospheric heaters they have, and ionizers, and maybe technology we're not even aware of, along with the chemtrails that become a very conductive medium in the sky. They stimulate that stuff, and you know, any of us have done the research know that they can control the weather. So they're creating all the symptoms of climate change: severe weather, fires, storms, tornadoes, cyclones, floods, the whole gamut, and blaming it on CO2, which is what you exhale. It's your life breath.
Exactly.
You know, and it's all an effort to bring in, you know, the new world order that Grandpa George talked about.
And they're talking about reducing CO2 levels down to, well, actually, Joanna Hay, who was atmospheric scientist who spoke at the climate engineering conference that myself and Harry attended in March. I asked her what levels do they intend to bring CO2 down to, considering that it's at 400 parts per million right now, and she couldn't answer the question. She said we just want to bring it down a little bit more and a little bit more, but she couldn't answer the question. Now I said to her that at 400 parts per million, CO2 levels are already dangerously low. At 200 parts per million, plant life starts to suffer, and at 150 parts per million, life can no longer sustain itself. It's game over for life on Earth if it goes below 150 parts per million. And these psychopaths are proposing taking the little bit of CO2 that we have left in the atmosphere and bringing it down to nothing. So this is it's openly genocide. To even talk about reducing CO2 levels, that's attempted genocide. We know from you can look around the world and see industrial food growers. They have CO2 generators in their polytunnels. They bring the CO2 levels up to 1,000 parts per million, and you want to see the difference in plant growth. It's absolutely astounding. Plants grow to 3 times, 4 times the size. They grow much faster. It's just much more healthy. and more CO2 is just a better planet. It's always been like that throughout history, but yet they demonize CO2. It's the gas of life, as Garry said, but they want to demonize it, just like they want to demonize humans. We're the poison, we're the cancer, we're the ones that are causing climate change, we're the ones that are causing all these storms. No mention of their NEXRADs and all of their super technologies like CERN, like the cloud experiments they're creating down there. No mention of NEXRADs, no mention of chemtrails and all the shit they're spraying into the atmosphere. It's all our fault. It's all about blaming us, passing the blame on us, and getting us to pay the price for these changes, and in the form of carbon taxes and climate laws, which they will be bringing into legislation this year all around Europe. 500 climate laws in the name of saving the earth. And
okay, can you guys hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, what we're going to do is we've actually come to the end of the first hour. We're having some technical difficulties, so we're going to go ahead and take a break right now. Steven's going to make some ads, and update us with what's going on with the Truth Cat Radio. And we're going to also play a song so I can get my mic working right. And we're going to go into hour number 2. Thank you guys so much.
Amanda, your sound is really good right now. So what I would advise, Terry, Garry, and Harry, or should I say Garry, Terry, and Harry, guys. Everybody, if you guys could just mute your microphones for me, please, while we go into this break. And then Amanda, you too, mute your microphone. But what I want you to do is unplug your USB for your sound card.
You said it's perfect.
Yeah,
now. I don't
it is good.
It
It is good. But I'm just saying, the other thing is you could do at this point also is the little plugs that go into that sound card. You could plug those in and out just once or twice and just make sure they got
I've
a nice.
been doing that.
Okay, well you're good now. Then let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sometimes it can be a build-up of static, and it goes to a crescendo.
Yeah. Well,
It's
next
probably
day.
coming from my brain.
Yeah, she needs to put foil on her windows, is what I keep telling her.
I need to put foil on my brain. All right, go into the break.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go to break. Everybody mute up, please. We'll be right back. Amanda will return in about 5 minutes. Okay, everybody mute? Wonderful. All right, everybody. Again, this is MadisonStar Moon with Amanda Danielle, and this is Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. Thank you for being here. It is Tuesday night. Excellent show so far. We will have 60 minutes. We will continue with the rest of our show. That will be it for the live broadcasting for this evening. We will return with live broadcasting at 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursday with Graham Sutherland and Delete the Beast. After his show, Jay Parker returns for 2 hours at 8 p.m. Eastern with Matrix Warriors. My show will start at 10 p.m. Eastern following Jay. That is the Stephen D. Kelly Show. And my topic will be about the Falun Gong movement in China. Immediately following my show at midnight, East Coast time, will be Spirit Quest with Tony Pazek. That is a call-in show, so we encourage everybody to call in and join. Later on in the day, Rodrigo Soto will return with Power of Consciousness at 8 p.m. Eastern. And his show will be followed at 10 p.m. Eastern by Eric Dadmer and his show Love Vibrations. On Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, Jay Parker returns with his show The Center Path. And on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, Richard Carey will return with Beyond the Matrix. I just want to tell everybody that we do have a very exciting show scheduled for this coming Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and that's the Daryl Show with Daryl Nichols, and he has none other than Sophia Stewart, who is the author of the Matrix saga, as well as the Terminator. So this is going to be an incredible guest, and we're very much looking forward to hearing about what inspired her to write these stories and the trials and tribulations of trying to fight the system that stole her book from her and created those movies. So we're really excited to have her. That is going to be next Tuesday. I don't have the date in front of me, but it'll be on the Daryl Show at 8 p.m. Eastern. And of course, if you follow us on Facebook, you'll see lots and lots of advertising that we will generate. I want to also ask everybody to please follow us on Facebook. Go and like all the various pages, including the pages for Amanda Danielle and her show, MadisonStar Moon, and all the other pages associated with our other hosts, as well as the various pages directly connected to the Truth Cat radio. And this is very important, and you can help us grow rapidly by helping us and sharing it and making sure that we get lots of likes and exposure to people out there in the world of the internet. I want to also advise everybody that we do require financial assistance. We are 100% listener supported. We do not monetize our videos, and we do not have sponsors. So we do need to come up with a way to pay our bills, and it's not easy because everyone is tight right now, and that's just the reality of the world we live in. However, anything will help, even if it's only a penny from everyone that's listening. It will all add up and generate something significant. There is a button on our homepage at www.truthcat.com that will say support us, and that is where you go to get the information on how you can use the PayPal or send us money directly. And again, anything that you send us is appreciated, and I want to thank you in advance. We also have a very active chat room that you need to join. If you have not done that yet, please go register a chat name, and get to meet the people that are there. And this is an excellent way that you can send in questions and comments to the hosts as well as their guests. And I do monitor the chat, so I will be happy to pass your questions and comments along. And if you are a troll, I'll be happy to block you. You like that, huh? Yeah. I was going to get into the troll issue a little bit, but, obviously this is an ongoing thing, and it just means that we're doing a good job, and the flak is always the heaviest when you're over the target. So, guys, we are definitely dropping some big bombs right on target right now. That's all I can say. And with that, I guess we're probably ready to return to the second half of the show.
Okay, Stephen, don't leave yet. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good.
And
let me know.
I never leave. Don't worry.
Okay, just let me know if I start Robotroning out.
No problem. If I'm a little bit late getting to you, it's just because there's a little delay on my monitor, but I'm listening. Okay?
Okay, great.
All right.
All righty.
It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Stephen Kelly. I really appreciate you giving us this platform to speak so freely on these important issues. We are going into hour number 2, and I want to ask you guys, did you hear what I had said to you when I was thanking you guys for your, you guys are so scientifically researched and you're bringing forth this important information to the public? I just wanted to reiterate that thought if you didn't hear me before, because you guys are powerhouses in this movement. Where do you guys want to start off on hour number 2? There's so many different aspects of this agenda that I would like to hit on. If you guys have anything in particular you'd like to address, I'm game.
I would like to just mention, we were talking about CO2, coming into carbon tax. I read, I'd like to bring the link up again another time, I'll send that to you, but the carbon tax in Europe will cost each family as much as £1,500 once it's in full bore. And that money has been arranged to go into the Rothschilds Bank. How about that? So they've got the fingers right on the pulse to get the money out of us for carbon tax. And I understand that in the last 24 hours that President Obama has taken upon himself to authorize the agreement for the climate change Paris Agreement. So there's a dictator in the throes.
I have a question real quick. Sorry, Gary, I know you want to chime in. How much more money do the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, all these people need?
All of it.
Everything. As long as we're just impoverished. As long as we're impoverished to the point where we just die of starvation, man. Third world everywhere. And the New World Order live in their palaces and live off world, and we just crazy, man. It's not even about money, is it? It's about taking everything. It's about stealing everything, man, and the world.
Yeah, it's about control. In terms of CO2, just to add what Harry was talking about, we're calling this, a carbon tax. It's basically going to be a global tax put in place by pretty much every United Nations nation on every ounce of fossil fuel that burns. That means That means anything that creates fire is going to be taxed. You know, back to, CO2 again. We're down to what, 400 parts per million. It might even be slightly less than that. I live in British Columbia. In British Columbia, you might have heard of BC Bud. It's pretty famous around the world. I've been in an environment or two that grow the stuff, and I've also been in great big industrial greenhouses, which are very similar. And what do those industrial greenhouses add, or a grower that's legally growing BC Bud here in BC, what do they add to the environment to get the biggest yield and the biggest plants they can? It's called CO2. They run their rooms and their greenhouses that are growing celery and tomatoes at 1,500 parts per million. 1,500 parts per million to make big, healthy vegetables. Our planet is down to, less than 400 parts per million. And they're going to put in a CO2 tax on, or a carbon, they're calling it a carbon tax, but really they're picking on one gas, and they're picking on CO2, and they're going to tax it. And as I mentioned earlier, that's our life form. That's what we exhale. That's what plants breathe. And with this Paris Climate Agreement that just took place this past year, many nations, including my own here in Canada, has agreed in principle to reduce CO2 emissions to zero by 2050. That means zero. That means you can't drive a gas-powered car. You can't burn a log in your wood stove. You can't have a campfire in your backyard. And they're going to ease it in with with a tax to get you used to it. So that any gas you burn will become very expensive. I know here in Canada they plan to ban natural gas furnaces by the year 2030, and nobody knows it. Nobody freaking knows it. For example, Fortis Energy here in British Columbia, that's our big gas company that feeds all the commercial buildings and all the residential houses, etc., with their natural gas to run their furnaces and their cooktops and fireplaces and all that. Right now, those guys are actually giving away free pipe to new construction, right? So if you're building a new house or a new commercial building, if you put in gas pipe and run your house on gas, you get the pipe for free. Meanwhile, they're raising the price of our electricity. They've doubled it here in BC, and they're going to create they're already doing it, a massive environmental disaster in northern British Columbia called Site C. They're making a massive dam where they're flooding prime farmland to make this great big massive electrical dam. And why are they doing that? Because in 15 years, when they ban all the natural gas that they're giving you basically for free right now and charging you carbon tax on, they're going to ban it, and you're going to have to use a clean source of energy, which would be that big dam in British Columbia. It's a big freaking scam.
I have a question. Is there going to be a carbon tax on aircraft?
There will be a carbon tax on every fossil fuel.
Well, not aircraft, obviously, because those guys.
Maybe you're right, Terry. You might know something I don't.
Well,
they're probably exempt.
Commercial aircraft are exempt to all laws that we are, because they're not subject to emission regulations like we are on the ground here with our cars. They're exempt because they're run by the climate engineers, the bankers, and that's all. They write their own laws. But Garry, you were talking about they want a carbon-free, zero carbon emissions. They want to bring emissions down to zero, and they're talking about this carbon-free future and reduce their carbon footprint until we get a carbon-free future. There's only one way to achieve a carbon-free future, and that's to eliminate all life.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right. And whatever's left of it, you put them in little cities, and you make them, run on solar panels or something, That's how they're going to do it. They're going to, or how they plan to do it, so that it becomes impossible to live off it. So if you're living off grid and you want to, burn wood to heat your your dinner, it's going to be illegal and you'll be criminalized and ostracized. That's their plan.
Interestingly, do you know one of the places that they use as an argument that CO2 is rising? It is a monitoring station which is on the summit of Mauna Loa. And guess what that is in Hawaii? It's a frigging volcano that emits CO2. How about that? And by the way, it is active.
Yeah.
Do you know that one average size volcanic eruption emits more CO2 than 10 years of human activity? That's a fact.
Right.
Yeah. Our impact with regards to CO2 emissions on the planet is minuscule. I'm not talking about pollution here. I'm just talking about CO2 emissions. It's minuscule. And it doesn't, you know what? CO2 doesn't even cause warming. It's a load of bullshit. Even if it did,
right.
What's bad with warming? Warming is good. Humanity has thrived. Warming has always been good for life. Life loves warm. That's why most of the species on the planet live in the tropics. Warm is good. That's why humans love going to the sun on a summer holiday. We love warm. We love sun.
Did you know, I asked one or two of the scientists in Germany, and I said, well, where actually is the evidence that CO2 is responsible for warming the planet? And even Alan Robock said, oh, it's all been well established. Yeah, but who? Who actually did the tests and who proves the results to be true? And you know, nobody knows.
It's just some BS that the IPCC came up with, you know?
Yeah, I think it originally came with Al Gore, who sat at the feet and was taught by the scientists that suspected CO2 might be warming the planet.
That's
and he
just
went
his
back
story.
on it. He actually went back and said, no, it doesn't. And they actually poisoned him and gave him Alzheimer's disease. Al Gore then gave him a presentation saying, thank you for all your work. And this guy says, no, it's not true. You've got it wrong. So they basically fried his brain so that he couldn't even talk anymore. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's really sad. Do you guys think that global warming itself is a myth?
Of course. And I said this to David Keith. When we were in Cambridge last year, myself and Harry went to the Cambridge Solar Radiation Management Conference in Cambridge University. David Keith and Ken Caldera were in attendance, the usual suspects. And at the closing conference, I said to David Keith, I said, what do you think about the 39,000 American scientists who have signed a petition to say that global warming is a fraud, 9,000 of which have PhDs? And he said, oh, I don't know if these people are reputable scientists and whatever, this and that. But that's a fact. It's actually 31,000 American scientists.
Didn't he say, well, I haven't heard that? He says, well, I haven't heard about that.
Yeah. Yeah, there has been a hiatus. They call it the hiatus for the last 20 years. It's just leveled out. There hasn't been any rise. There hasn't been any drops. So they say. There's been no warming for 20 years, and it's just a low.
Yeah, it's just part of their they're creating the symptoms of global warming with their weather control technology. Various technologies that I mentioned earlier. It's a stage effect. All the world is a stage. Well, they're using their stage effects to create the extreme weather that we're seeing. Just like they use, their stage effects to create the extreme terrorism that we see and the extreme financial crashes.
We had a glimpse.
Global cooling for decades, and that was bad. So whatever they say is bad, they demonize it, and they demonize the sun. Sun is bad. We need to block it out with solar radiation management. Carbon dioxide is bad. We need to reduce it by killing y'all. And the global warming is bad. So we got to cool the planet. It's like whatever they say. They're the IPCC. They write the climate Bible, and we're all supposed to just bow to their doctrines, their climate doctrines. It's ridiculous, man. How we're just dictated to and bullied around by these psychopaths, just perverting science, just common sense science, man.
Yeah, the IPCC just seems to be a self-feeding loop of BS. And the bottom line is we've all entrusted our health and safety to the babysitter, but the babysitter is a psychopath in every way, shape, and form.
You know, when we were in Cambridge, not Cambridge, we were in London conference, Terry, and they said we couldn't record. The lady that was talking at the beginning, she's one of the local universities, quite elderly, and Olga made a statement to her and said, there's been a plateau of temperature changes, there's been no increases. And she actually turned around and said, yes, you're absolutely right. There has been no increase in the last 20 years of temperatures, right? Now, at the end, in the break, Olga overheard Alan Robock scolding her and saying, you never admit in public to things like that. How about that? That's what's going on behind the scenes. That was just a look through the keyhole on how they treat each other if they don't toe the line.
Mm-hmm. He gave her a right bollocking, didn't he? Out in the lobby. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. In other words, toe the line.
Do you guys feel that they've already done so much damage to the atmosphere, it might be irreversible?
Not with a cloudbuster.
I think Mother Nature can heal anything. Yeah. We just need to get them to stop spraying their poison and stop, turn their heaters off and stop with all the frequency we're emitting.
Yeah, can we hit on the death towers in a little bit, like at least the last 20 minutes?
Yeah, here's just before. Yeah, let's segueing into the death towers. Here's something I'd like to state. I firmly believe that particle physics that we've been taught, everything is small moving little marbles that bounce around and create matter. I quite believe that that's not true, and I actually think that everything is frequency. Everything is frequency. It's not particles bouncing around. It's frequency vibrating.
Yeah, and you know what that
and these death towers are getting into some some righteous domains that are really affecting humanity and affecting the way our electrical universe works.
Yeah, do you know this? This is a fact for you. They talk about atoms and molecules. Did you know that there are no, as Garry said rightly, there are no atoms and molecules? None. They're vortexes of energy within vortexes of energy based on Tesla's secret of 369, which is the geometric spiral. That's how energy works. So that was mind-blowing.
Fibonacci, is that what that's called, Harry? Is that called Fibonacci? Fibonacci, yes. And within all that, electricity, energy, magnetism, gravity, all fits into that. And ether is kind of the controller domain of electricity, energy, magnetism, and gravity. And
yeah, he knew too much, man. They didn't want him around. He understood. Tesla said that if you want to understand the universe, you think in energy, frequency, and vibration. He wasn't talking about particles or atoms or molecules, man.
Right.
They knew that this guy understood it, man. He developed all these technologies, free energy technologies. His envisions were what HARP was based on, and so many other things. And a visionary genius, and he knew so much. But yeah, it's interesting that you're talking about that, Garry. Harry was only talking about this last week, so I'll let you continue about the particles and molecules. I'm not too well versed on it myself, but continue there.
Well, it's all controlled by ether. That's why Tesla understood everything. But coming back to what Amanda was talking about, damage to cell structure, DNA works at a specific frequency. The brain works at a specific frequency, and it's important that frequency is stable. And when you alter the right-hand side and the left-hand side frequency of the brain, it becomes stressed and you can't think properly. And the brain has a capacity to correct that frequency so it can work. But there comes a point where it can't correct it. And that's why they hit us with these frequencies. it causes massive problems for the brain itself and the processing, and same for the rest of the body. Did you know that your nervous system right through your body is actually an extension of your brain? It's exactly the same cells. And that's why people who've had legs and arms amputated actually have a problem with some parts of their memory. Isn't that interesting? So when we're hit with the wrong frequencies, not only does the brain get stressed, the whole body gets stressed, and the cells cannot replicate correctly because they need the correct frequency as they duplicate their DNA. And that means that the next cell is flawed and has the wrong instructions, and then it develops into cancer. They know exactly what they're doing.
Absolutely. I was going to, just to preface this and give it a bit of history as well. Cell towers have been prevalent in our life, or death towers, as Amanda puts them. She's aware of all the dangers and hazards of these things. They've been prevalent for 20 years roughly, 10 years really badly, 5 horribly. But this goes back, back to maybe pre-World War II, early World War II, when I'm not sure if I think it was the Rockefeller Institute in conjunction with some Nazi scientists did research, and based on the research they moved music frequency, and the inharmonicity that comes with each musical note to a frequency that creates more harmonic distortion. So prior to, say, around 1940, you play piano, Amanda, A440, the A note on our piano today is tuned to 440 cycles per second, 440 hertz. Prior to around 1940, that note that we based the whole piano on was tuned down to 432 hertz, 432, which is in tune with the Schumann resonance, the natural resonance of the earth. And, there's some people that say, this research was done and they found that 440 hertz was the most harmonic distorted frequency that they could tune A to kind of mess up the whole rest of the piano and the rest of the spectrum of notes. So they started this a long time ago. Music's actually more beautiful tuned at 432 as opposed to the 440 that we've been raised at.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Can hear you beautifully.
Okay. I want to mention that the videos that we see on YouTube, the harp sounds heard all over the world, where you hear these horrific sounds. I mean, it's ghastly. Do you guys know what that is?
Hey, I've had well, they call it tinnitus. I've had a high-pitched frequency ringing through my head for, it's going on 3 months now. I had it back in the winter. I had it for about 2 months, and it went away for most of the beginning of the summer, and it's been back for the last 2 or 3 months. And Harry sent me a link to a website where you can test, you can hear what different frequencies sound like. I basically established that the frequency that's going through my head is 10,000 hertz. And it's very, very high, and it never goes, and especially at nighttime, when you're lying in silence, this is when it's at its worst. And a lot of people are complaining of the same frequency, 9.5 to 10,000 hertz. And Harry, you made a video on that, and you got a lot of comments about that. A lot of people were contacting you.
Hundreds and hundreds of people from all over the world saying, I've got that same frequency in my head.
Me too, and it can change. I can get, just as an example, maybe 10,000 hertz in both ears, and then all of a sudden your left ear drops down to 7,000 hertz, and the right ear stays at 10, and you get like a chord, some kind of frequency harmony happening in your head.
I want to mention something real quick. One time I was in my house, and all of a sudden this high pitch ringing was in my ears, and I had friends in my house, and I said, do you guys hear that? And they said no. And then all of a sudden, boom, boom, I have multiple frequencies in my head at the same time, and I said, do you guys hear that? And they all said no, and I got really scared because
Yeah.
I didn't understand how I could possibly be the only one to hear. And you feel it too. You feel it snap on in your head.
They can act, yeah. This is a whole other subject, but I think they can isolate you and tune right into your radio frequency and send you your DNA and individual frequency.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of this is to do. I was talking to Ron Angel, a very clever guy. He's got some incredible documents, and he's got a relative who still works in the CIA. And so I've got to be careful what I say, but he's been passed documents on nanobots. Now, these nanobots are a fantastic piece of engineering. You can go on the website and look these companies up. They will make you anything you want if you've got the money, including transmitter nanobots. And he's got evidence that these have been sprayed in chemtrails that can go through the water system. You can breathe them in, and they go in the food. They've even found that they've added them to things like Coca-Cola, and they work on sugar in our blood. That's how they power themselves. They have small transmitters, and they can key into your nervous system, and they can track you with them. You know, we always say you couldn't invent this stuff, and it's one of them subjects which is truly, truly amazing and provable. And this has been going on, and they can generate frequencies. The Israelis have boasted they've got one that can do a lobotomy on your brain.
Yeah.
Just to elaborate on what Harry's saying, this stuff can enter your body as a nanotube. A microscopic nanotube that, well, we know what nano is, right? Incredibly small. And they can self-assemble and can create the symptoms of, what we've heard of as Morgellons, for example. Can create devices, crystals, wires, machines, self-replicating. Just on this topic, I have a friend here in Canada. Him and another person are Tesla experts, and they reverse Tesla patents. And one of the things that they've done with their knowledge is built a carbon trap, where they can actually capture carbon that comes off of a smokestack. And this gentleman showed me some photos of something that blew his mind. He said, "I'm collecting nanotubes. I can't believe this. These are tubes within tubes." So if you could picture a miniature straw with a straw inserted inside and made of different types of metal. And just before he told me this, I was researching nanotubes and Morgellons, and people that have diagnosed Morgellons and have tested it have said that it's made out of self-replicating tubes that have a tube within a tube, just like a battery has two different metals. So a tube made out of a different metal inserted into a larger tube, and they react together to make a battery reaction when fed with sugar or wheat, and self-replicate and energize themselves. And when my buddy had sent me the photos of the nanotubes he was pulling out of the environment with his carbon trap, just kind of confirmed to me that, I think it might be possible.
There was a video on this where people were noticing clouds turning pink. And it's a very common phenomenon now. And somebody traced that these type of clouds contained a glass which was coated in a fine layer of aluminium.
Yep.
And nanofiber. And apparently when you breathe them in, these particular things on your lungs will then work the way in through the lung linings and into your body. And we are seeing more and more pink clouds in the last 6 months. And they reckon 80% of the population now have these on the lungs.
I was told that was from the barium, that it gives it the pink color. Is that right?
It can. Some of it's to do... Sorry, Terry.
Go ahead, Terry.
Sorry, orange. I believe the barium is usually orange. It's the orangey hue.
Okay.
Barium is also responsible for creating that mirror effect you see sometimes in the skies when you see a for example, a chemtrail, and it actually reflects back into the sky above the trail.
Yeah.
That's the barium creating that effect. It changes the refraction index of the sun, and also helps create those sun dogs where we see, the ring around the sun, and then, in 2 or 4 different areas around the sun, you'll also see a rainbow effect.
Yeah, the chembo.
And the rainbow coming out the sides, that's the barium.
Right.
And what that is, colors are based on frequencies. Red's a different color than yellow and blue, and it goes through the spectrum.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why what they're doing, they are changing the frequency of the atmosphere. Most of them you cannot see.
Right, with electromagnetism, they can.
Yeah, you can see the frequency in the visible band, but there's thousands of other frequencies and octaves going through us that we cannot see, but then some of them we can hear.
Right.
Okay. I want to touch a little bit on the coagulation of the sky. Here in Hampton Roads, on a daily basis, when I go outside, the sky is no longer, fluffy white clouds. I wouldn't expect that anyways, but there is a coagulation and scalar effect that ripples throughout the entire atmosphere. Do you guys feel that that's a mixture of the HAARP and the death towers and the chemicals? I mean, because I never saw clouds like that before.
My answer to that is that is, we can use HAARP as kind of a shortcut term for an ionospheric heater. There's many HAARP type facilities around the globe, dozens, and there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of NEXRADs and ionospheric heaters. And I also think that many of the death towers that you referred to play a role as well. And they all communicate together in concert. And oftentimes, what you're referring to is the clouds across the sky that are covered with the scalar waves. It's basically all that aluminum and barium and strontium, that really conductive dust, being stimulated by electromagnetic frequency, and that stuff is being pulled and pushed wherever they want it. So in some areas it's sucking up moisture, in other areas it's dropping, and they just move the stuff around almost like cattle with electromagnetic frequency.
I think what you've got to remember is this: there isn't one agenda here in chemtrails. There's probably 6 or 7. So one day you might see loads and loads of chemtrails, and then another day you'll see 4 or 5 big fat ones, and then no small ones. So I produced a patent in one of my talks in front of Ken Caldera. I think he left early, but this is when we were in Germany at the Critical Discussions Conference, and it was talking, this patent was on about how they can create energy in the atmosphere. And part of it was using, you think about it, what's in a battery? You've got heavy metals, you've got distilled water and acid, and David Keith says we can spray acid. They've got distilled water up there, and they've got barium and strontium, which are conductive. The whole atmosphere in certain areas is changed into a solar panel for pulling energy like Tesla could do around the planet to create massive catastrophic weather occurrences. And all the patents are there to say it can be done. So that's one agenda. When they're laying the chemtrails, some of the big fat ones, some people say they see a shadow above it. That is the conductor to pull through their energy frequencies to a specific part of the atmosphere. And here's the kicker for me. Since CERN has kicked in, we're now seeing some of the weirdest cloud formations you could ever draw on a page, like balloon shapes and ugly waves with black lines in them. And the interesting thing, I posted this on Facebook, CERN has a project called CERN Cloud, and it works with quantum theory mechanics. In other words, they can add tons of material into the CERN's Hadron Collider, and it will appear in the atmosphere somewhere else.
I just thought of something. How interesting it would be to see what children are drawing as clouds nowadays in their pictures. You know, before the cloud was just a little circle with little waves on the outside of it, and there's a cloud. What are the children drawing now?
Yeah, they're copying what they see in the NASA cloud chart with the 32 new cloud types. And in this cloud chart, this was released by NASA in 2010, and this is just an attempt to normalize all of these frequency clouds and all these new anomalies being created. So yeah, you can see all these ripples and all these algorithmic frequency effects. So yeah, so this is all new to kids. This is the new normal for kids, and yeah, this is what they're going to be painting in school, probably if they're not already doing it. And it's this is
Now kids can kids can draw clouds with rulers.
So,
Yeah, totally. And there's so many different types of clouds now. When I went to school, there was only 4 types of clouds. Now there's like 4,000. I mean, they just keep making up crazy names for these chemical concoctions, and it's horrific. I mean, I hate to sound, crazy in my videos, but I'm always horrified.
Yeah. Yeah. I love looking at your videos, Amanda. It's a form of therapy to see you losing your mind, man.
Yeah, right.
I just
All right,
wanted to
yeah, go
put
ahead,
a couple
Garry.
of thoughts forward.
Oh, Harry.
I think everybody will agree that we've moved forward in a fantastic, both as activists, we've become skilled, knowledgeable, and as clever as they are in some ways. But they are moving this agenda almost to a panic station. We're entering critical mass, I believe, and the next 12 months, I see problems. But I really believe in the end, it's impossible for them to win. They are on a minority, despite the fact they're in full control right now. And this is just my personal opinion. I've made arrangements this week that I've got somewhere I can go to. I've got food stores and I've got equipment that I can use in the event of us hitting critical mass, if you like, because these things have happened in the past. Millions of people have died in the past in wars. They've killed thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. And there, if you like, Armageddon is happening now. Try living in Syria with no food for 3 days and bombs landing on you. These are tests to use on us for the rest of the planet. So it's just for the listeners, just take a few precautions and be sensible and make some preparations in case, we have problems coming up. Right.
That's great advice. I mean, everybody needs to be prepared. I myself am not, but we don't all have the ways and means to be a prepper. So it's something to think about for sure.
Yeah, some long life foods like rice and pasta and tin food. I know Terry took action a while back, and you think, wow, I've got all this food now, and I did it for nothing because we're still here. But, one day I do believe the stock market's going to go and the banks are going to have big problems. We will only be allowed to draw $20 or $30 out of a cash machine, per day.
Yeah. All right. I want to just mention briefly about the conference. I sat in the front row when Terry Lawton gave his presentation, and I must say that it was the best presentation I've ever seen. I mean, he hit on every single topic and covered everything so thoroughly, and he did it with a comedic nature, so it was entertaining at the same time. And we just need more people that are willing to come forward like you guys. Harry, you're a genius. And Garry, you're a genius too. I mean, you all are. Just listening to you guys, I am totally humbled and almost don't even know what to say. But I've learned so much from what you guys have presented just tonight alone. Let's see. I don't know how much time we have because I don't have a clock in front of me. But if we're getting down to the wire, we want to hit on our last subjects and stuff. Was there anything else that you guys really felt was important that you wanted to discuss tonight?
I'd like to stress how important the technology we're using at the moment is, because it's not just about the weather. It resets the atmosphere. For example, Wilhelm Reich, when he deployed in the desert, did you know that what is more critical than rain for plants and insects is that dew in the morning and the moisture that accumulates on the floor during the night. That's where they get their water from. Now, chemtrails eliminates that. It dries the whole atmosphere up. And since we deployed in Ireland, and I've had it here, when we've deployed the cloudbusters, the dew starts to accumulate more and more in the local atmosphere. In the mornings, the floor is soaking wet. When I camped as a young boy, the tent in the morning was absolutely saturated. And now we don't get dew anymore. Whereas these cloudbusters create an atmosphere where there's extra moisture in the air, and it's critical for the insects to get their water. Even the birds, when there's no rain, they get their water off the grass, which is the dew. So it's not just about the weather, it's a total reset of the atmosphere. William Wright deployed in the desert, and 50 years later, his daughter went back, and there was still an oasis of plants growing there. People were growing fruit there. Amazing. So this technology needs to be spread, and people need to be using it responsibly.
Yeah. Harry, can you tell us all your websites and any links that you want to lead us to?
YouTube is Chemtrail. We have a couple of links which are top secret, actually, for people who are involved with this. So I can't actually post those.
Yeah.
But in private, on a one-to-one basis, yes, we can discuss those. I'm just my Facebook page, Harry Rhodes.
Okay. You don't have a website?
No, I don't.
You need your own television station, Harry, that just plays round the clock 24 hours of you giving speeches and presentations. Now, is there anywhere where we can see where you spoke to David Keith? Because I think everybody would want to see that.
Your microphone's packing in again.
Oh, give me a second.
Yeah, man, I was afraid to say something. Oh my gosh. It just got bad all of a sudden. We're going to talk about this after the show. I just want to say, you guys, stick around when we drop the server. Okay, don't everybody hang up all at once. All right, please.
Okay, is it good now?
It's a little bit better. You're still a little scratchy, but again, we're going to work on this after the show, Amanda. So we're getting a handle on this, though. I just want to say, guys, great show, and certainly Wilhelm Reich. We got to have you back to do a show just on Wilhelm Reich. People need to learn more about that guy.
Yeah.
Okay, what about...
You're awesome, Amanda.
Okay, all right. So yeah, now we're going to move on to Terry. Terry, would you like to put your last 2 cents in and tell us where we can find all your information?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Terry Lawton, and I'm on YouTube, T-Bird Lauderdale. Yeah, I don't have a website. That's where you can find me. Haven't been that active actually in the last couple of months. I've been kind of like taking a little bit of a time out, if it's even possible to do that. But I just took a step back over the last couple of months. Wasn't in the best of health. Just trying to focus on getting my memory back and different things. This bloody ringing in my ear, in my head, lots of different things. Wasn't feeling the best. Lots of very low energy. So I'm just getting myself back on track health wise, and starting to come online a little bit more and on social media. But yeah. So yeah.
I want to encourage everyone to listen to Terry's speech in Vancouver and Harry's because they both did stellar presentations, just totally professional, putting all of the important information out there. Okay, Garry, want to move on to you?
Yeah, I'm here, Amanda.
Yeah. You have a website, YouTube?
I don't have a website. I'm kind of new to all this stuff. I'm a guy that kind of woke up in a big way a couple years ago, and reached out and became good friends with Harry and Terry, among others. And I'm at the point in my life right now where I'm finding, just kind of planning my next steps on how I can be effective in this movement. And so at this point, I don't have a website. I'm kind of working behind the scenes and helping others, but people are welcome to contact me on Facebook, Garry Lowney. I'm easy to find.
And that's with 2 R's, Garry.
That's with 2 R's. That's right. I'm actually a Garry Lowney.
Oh, Garry. Okay, great. Okay, also, Harry, I didn't hear your response of where we can find the video where you asked David Keith those questions.
That's on my Chemtrail YouTube website.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. That's great. Okay, I would also like to point out I didn't really want to mention this because it has been such a stellar show, but I do need to mention that there is a fake imposter account. It's called Amanda Bays. They actually use my first and last name and they're impersonating me online. Please do not like that page. There are lots of entities out there that want to stop us. They want to confuse people as to who we really are. Just ignore those people, block them. There's only one Amanda Danielle account. It's me. That's the only Facebook account I use. My old MadisonStar Moon account that has, thousands of followers on that page. That was my original Facebook page. I don't even use that anymore. I redirect people to my Amanda Danielle page. So just stay vigilant, fight the trolls, ignore the haters, and do your own thing. We do not have any leaders in this movement. We are all the leaders of this movement, and we need more leaders. So real leaders create other leaders. And I want to just encourage everyone to just do your research, be vigilant, and keep up the good work. Does anybody have any last words before I shut it down?
Amanda,
It'd
I'd
be
like
nice,
to congratulate
nice
you.
to finish with Terry's song, One Hand in My Pocket. That's a great song.
Do you guys have it queued up or anything?
No, I don't. I can get it in a minute if you want. But I'd just like to
Yeah.
congratulate you. Obviously, you're shaking the foundation.
If you can send me a YouTube link, I'll try to do that for you. But I just want to say one thing real quick to all the listeners. Anybody out there that has some orgonite or some shungite, Amanda needs some. If you guys, Garry, if you can hook her up. I'm serious. I want to get her a bag of shungite on the back of her modem, and I want some orgonite in her room and all around her computer. Okay, so
That's sweet,
let's
Stephen.
hook her
Thank
up. Okay, seriously.
I just want to say for anybody that thinks that activism is not effective, just look at Amanda here for a case example. She has got some guy imitating her on Facebook. This is an establishment agent, so she's obviously rocking the foundations of the establishment. So that's amazing.
Thank you, guys. All right, and Stephen, you can let us know when you have that song queued up. And I want to thank everybody again for coming on to this amazing show. I can't wait for the YouTube video. And Stephen usually gets those up shortly after the broadcast. You guys have all the rights to, upload them to your YouTube channel. You are listening to Truth Cat Radio. Stephen, you want me to go ahead and close it up, and you'll go and you'll play the song?
Yeah. If you guys, I don't see the link to the song. If somebody could just give me the link in here, I'll try to get that up.
I'll get it now.
Terry, somebody, that'd be great. It'll take me a minute to queue that up. Otherwise, we'll go into a show. So if you want it, we've got 5 minutes. You guys can go ahead and just relax and chat for another 5 minutes, however long it takes.
Sweet. We'll relax and chat. Yeah. I want to just, like I said, encourage everybody to fight against the chemtrails. Call the federal agents. It doesn't matter if they're in on it. You want to bother them about this. Call the authorities, sign petitions, go to protest, do anything that you can do, because everybody has a part in this, even if it's a small part. Do you guys want to add something to that?
Yeah, can I just say, we put a letter into 10 Downing Street requesting details on chemtrails, geoengineering, with a document to support all the evidence that we've got based on it, and every MP was sent a copy. The Prime Minister refused to respond, so on May the 4th, we served notice of intention to prosecute David Cameron, the Prime Minister, at 10 Downing Street. Now, the guys, you did a presentation in front of the panel on the Aviation Authority's emissions. I can't remember what the proper expression is. But you know what I would do, Amanda? Yep. I would serve notice on every member of that panel and say, we'll intend to prosecute you if you don't handle this correctly, because they are ignoring everything you said on that day. And imagine if I said to you, Amanda, I'm serving notice on you to prosecute you in court and explain why. You'd be looking over your shoulder, because I reserve the right to monitor everything you do and present that in court. You've been told, you know about it, you cannot claim irresponsibility and ignorance. And that works. And those people would have a different attitude completely. And I think that's worth doing. I would prepare a letter and send to each of them. If you could give me names and addresses, I will send it on your behalf.
Oh, I have all of that. It's on executivereasoning.com/chemtrails. And it's also, I believe, on arrestthem.com. But I do have, all of that information posted. So, yeah, I did call the organizer for the EPA hearing, and she told me that they are going to have another one either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. I do know that Jim Lee, Jolie Diane, and several of the other people that spoke there are going to be attending again. And trust me, the second go around, it's not going to be as pleasant as it was the first time.
Those letters on your desk, and when you've finished, present it on their desk and say, I hereby serve notice on you to prosecute you in court if, and then explain why. Because they have a responsibility to actually act upon it. They're individuals. You can sue them as a citizen for not performing their duties correctly for the benefit and for the safety of the fellow man.
Right. They're guilty of omission, failure to act. It is a crime and it is punishable. So I don't know why they think they're above the law. They all think they're above the law and they're not. It's just because we're not holding them accountable, because I think most of us don't know where to begin, don't know how to start. We get doors slammed in our face and we just get told it's just a contrail. Now, I want to tell you guys, I spoke to an EPA federal agent last week, and when I asked him, how can you possibly tell me that it's a contrail without testing the emissions or identifying the specific aircraft I'm reporting to you, his answer was, you got me. And then he said, it's just what we've been told what it is. And I have that all recorded. Come on, guys. And this is the criminal EPA. He said, you got me. And I said, no, I want an answer. And he said, that's just what we've been told they are. So this is what we're dealing with, people.
Yeah. So then you can prosecute him in court. The evidence, the tape record, everything. You'll see a change.
Right. Okay. Stephen, have you sung yet?
Amanda, I am so close. I was my one computer's not letting me do it, so I'm actually trying to load it directly into the server from the server, and I'm like pushing buttons. I'm almost there. So let me try to do it. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Hang on.
Gary, you want to say something?
Hey, I guess we're just about to end it here. So my final words are peace and love.
Yeah, that's sweet. That's something we don't have enough of in this world.
Peace and love, man. That's how we're gonna win this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they want us to be filled with hate and discontent. That's what I'm filled with. I'm always mad, and I'm always bitchy.
There ain't no way we're gonna storm their gates, But peace and love and a few other things.
Amanda, I could make an etheric translator tube that you can put in your car, and it will start massive changes in the atmosphere as you drive around.
Wow. How can you do that? I mean, how would you get it to me?
Would have to post it to you in parts with an invoice on it, so it goes through, say, TNT or something. And all you do...
I would have to put it together?
It's quite easy. Take you 30 seconds.
Hey, I just want to add to that, Harry. If you happen to send one to, say, David Rockefeller, it wouldn't be able to work for him because he doesn't have positive intention. This technology, etheric technology, doesn't work for elitist, evil, devilish, pedophile scumbags. This works for good people with good intention, with love in their heart, real children of Mother Earth, and true children of Mother Earth, loving children of Mother Earth. And this is why they can't use this simple, cheap technology. I built my Cloudbuster for €60. They've got to build these HARP stations worth millions, and their CERN project worth 12 billion to manipulate the atmosphere. We can do it, in our back garden for very cheap, and this is the power of love as well. I do believe positive intention and love, and this is what's going to win it at the end of the day. No matter what technologies they throw at us, it's the power of love that will overcome it all.
Yeah, there's a justice built in creation that will not let evil have the final say. It will not be final. It's true. There's something I want to talk about, not on air, that we can do after this show that's very, very important. So if we can
I think it was funny, Harry, when I was recording you at the conference and I went to go around to your computer screen, you said, oh, no, they can't see this. And I could never show that video clip, but I have you on there. And I was like, what is he talking about? But now I know.
With the Harry G-string.
Stephen!
Yes, we are all ready to go.
Sweet. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close it up. I want to thank everyone for this beautiful, wonderful broadcast, one of the favorite shows I've ever done. I want to thank Terry Lawton, Garry Lowney, and Harry Rhodes. And on that note, look up, wake up, and do something.